You are listening to episode 35 of This Makes Me Happy. Welcome to This Makes Me Happy, a podcast about people and what makes them happy. I am your host, Bernardo Margulis. I'm a designer, art director, and educator, and I'm the principal of This Makes Me Happy, a design studio where I help my clients with branding and visual communications. I'm very happy to present This Makes Me Happy, the podcast, where each week I chat with a different person about what makes them happy. My guests come from all walks of life, and each of them shares their own personal happy stories. Join us every week for a unique conversation. Hello, welcome to another episode. Today I have Rob Lawless with me. Rob is a former sales rep, and he's currently on a quest to meet 10,000 people under the project Rob's 10K Friends. Rob, hello, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me. Else from that introduction, is there anything else you want the audience to know about you?
Yeah. So just to say about the project, the project is Rob's 10K Friends, and the goal is to meet with 10,000 different people for 1 hour each to see what comes of opening doors for no particular reason. Just a bit of context. And maybe a special skill of mine is that I used to be able to do, potentially still can do, a standing back tuck. So if someone goes down in the Olympics, maybe I can step in for them.
A standing back tuck?
Yeah, like a backflip, but on the ground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
No, and I'm so excited. We'll probably talk more about this, but I'll link to your project later, but that's how I connected with Rob. I just saw his Instagram and asked, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? So I'm happy that you said yes. So Rob, let's get to the key question. What makes you happy?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I was actually thinking about this past weekend. So I was out in Denver with a group of my fraternity brothers from Penn State, and we stayed in a mountain house, and we went to the top of the mountain that we were staying at. It was like a 100-yard hike up the hill. We wanted to see the sunset on the other side of the mountain. So we were walking over, and I was leading the pack with the hiking stick, and I had all my friends in a single file line behind me. And I was like, this is what makes me happy. And what this meant at that time was adventure. And I think that is kind of what it boils down to. When I think about my life and even what I'm doing right now, you can take adventure and you can apply it to multiple different things. But for me, I think that's the catch-all term, whether it be adventure of seeing new places or the adventure of interacting with different people. To me, that's the type of thing that keeps life fresh. So that is my answer, is adventure, and we can kind of dive into that a little bit, the different parts of it.
So you're not talking about the traditional adventure going through dangers and through the jungle, but you're speaking more broader term adventure?
Yeah, so that the danger of going through the jungles and whatnot, that would fall under that for me. So that would make me happy as well. I think it's just when I'm out and I'm exploring new things, that's kind of essentially what makes me happy. It's what makes life exciting to me. And, I was never the type of guy that could sit in a cubicle all day. I've done that job. I used to do consulting for Deloitte, and even at RJ Metrics, that was a bit more exciting because of the nature of startups, but I was still at a desk all day. And now what I do is I'm in all different parts of the city, and I'm interacting with different types of people. So it's just the excitement of new things. And I think adventure inevitably always provides that excitement, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Can you talk about that mindset of adventure? I'm interested to hear about the mindset of adventure itself, but also contrasting it to your experience as a consultant or as a sales rep where you were at a desk for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think for me, the mindset of adventure is just that everything is new. So to kind of contrast it, being at a Deloitte behind a desk all day. So I used to edit PowerPoint slides and I used to do like status reports. And there was nothing new about that. It was all like the same stuff day in and day out. You didn't really vary from one day to another. And my favorite part about Deloitte was when I used to be like close to rolling off of a project, because to me, I was like, all right, I'm rolling off of this one. I don't know what the next project holds. And that was exciting to me because it was like new faces and again, like a potentially a new city that I would travel to or like new type of work. And then I kind of found myself, I was like, I don't think it's a good thing that I'm here because I'm always excited to roll off of the thing that I'm on. So that's why I went to RJ Metrics, and yeah, like even that in and of itself was a new experience for me. So I'm the type of person that I get bored with things very easily. So for me, like having something that constantly stimulates my brain is what I want for my life. It's kind of like, and you know, I think that might change as I get older if I settle down with a wife and kids someday. But for now, it's like I'm 25 years old. I really have nothing tying me down. So it's like, where can I go? What can I do? Like, how can I live my life in a different way today than I did yesterday?
Is that something new that you're exploring now, or have you always had that idea of exploring what else is out there?
Yeah, I think I've always had that idea of exploring what else is out there. In like high school and whatnot, I used to Google search cliff jumping because I'd want to go to these places. Yeah, it's dangerous. My mom didn't like that, but
did you actually do it?
Yeah. There's a place in Pottstown. It's called St. Pete's Quarry. The cliff is, I think, 65 feet high, and it's illegal, and you're not supposed to do it. And it's not
so
really.
For all intents and purposes, it's not happening. We're not talking about this.
Yeah. I had a friend named Rob that jumped off this cliff. Yeah. But yeah, it was like, I've always also seek out those types of thrills, but then just to tie it back to my college experience. So I went to Penn State, and the reason I went to Penn State is because there were 40,000 students there, and I knew that I would be able to see a new face every day. I could see someone first day of freshman year and never see them again. And I could see someone last day of senior year who had been there the same time as me, but see them for the first time. And to me, that was exciting.
Do you ever crave, I'll say consistency for lack of a better word, but do you ever feel that you need a little less adventure for one moment, or is it a constant flow that you need that?
Sometimes, like when I was at RJ Metrics, just the nature of a startup, like it's like the highs are high, the lows are low type thing. It's like a roller coaster ride the entire time. I remember being there at that time and being like, I should start to look back at Deloitte, or I should look at PwC and try to get into a job like that that's stable and kind of like fund the life that I want by having a consistent job. But then like RJ would pick back up into like a happy place, and I would be okay with it and I'd be cool with it. I'm trying to think like about my life now. I guess it's like, it's weird because it is adventurous in that the people I meet are new every day, but it's also consistent in that I'm meeting them usually at the same time every day. And that is what I'm doing every day. Like the core of what my day is meeting people. So that's kind of similar. So I guess there is like a bit of a blend right now, but I do want to travel eventually. I think that will kind of teach me a lot about myself, and like if I do crave consistency, or if I'm cool with like going out into the world and just like being in a new place without a home base for a while. Yeah, I think like I would probably have a better answer to that after I do that. And it's something like within the next year, I'm hoping to kind of set myself up to do.
Have you ever traveled outside of the US?
I have, yes. When I was in high school, I did a trip to Italy. It was cool because I got to see all the tourist stuff, but I didn't like it because it was so regimented. For me, I think an ideal trip would be hanging out with a local and experiencing like that culture and that lifestyle from their perspective. But then I was in Cancun for spring break one year, which that doesn't even count because that's just like a bunch of Americans in a different location. But yeah, after graduation and before I started Deloitte, I did a short Euro trip with my sister. We did 3 days in Dublin, 3 days in London, 3 in Paris, and 3 in Amsterdam.
And did that trigger your sense of adventure and exploration?
Yeah, less so like triggered it, more so fulfilled it. Like, yeah, because it was already there, and then I can like, so the year following that, I actually went back to Ireland with this same group of fraternity brothers I was in Denver with, because Penn State played their season opener out there that year. What was cool, like one of my favorite memories from that trip is the last day, like after half of them had gone home, it was me and 4 other guys, and we were in Dublin, and we wanted to go to the Cliffs of Moher. And to do that, we needed to rent a car and travel across the country. So what we did is, and we weren't even 25 at the time, so like the guys were like, well, we won't rent to you, but you can go to that place down the street and they'll rent to you. And we're like, all right, we'll basically like sign our souls away. So went to that place, got a Ford Fiesta, which if you're not familiar is like
a tiny car.
A tiny car. Yeah. So we had 5 guys with all of our luggage from a trip to Ireland. And literally like we drove across the country, and I was the only one who knew how to drive stick shift. So we were figuring that out. It was my first time driving on the opposite side of the road, on the opposite side of the car, like sitting in what would be the passenger seat. And that was like a pretty interesting experience. We kind of like almost got hit by a couple buses, scraped one wall with the car at one point, hit a curb, almost took the wheel off, but we made it over there. And that was sweet. And to me, that was a fulfilling memory, just having like how are we going to get from place A to place B, and just, I don't know, like seeing the whole countryside in between was cool.
You mentioned almost getting run over and precarious situation or dangerous situations. Does fear ever play into your sense of adventure, either to stop you or to motivate you?
More so now than when I was little. I think like I'm probably more fearful at this age, because when you're little, I mean, it was more of a factor when I was at work, but when you're little, like you can break an arm and it's cool because like, I don't know, maybe you don't have to write for a little bit, or like it doesn't really affect your life that much. At this age, it's like you break an arm and like you're out of work for a little bit. It's super convenient. You can't do the things you need to do as a functioning adult. I would say I'm a bit more cautious at this point than I used to be, but that's probably also situational. Like I'd still love to go skydiving. I'd still go cliff jumping, but like climbing a rock wall, like on the side of a mountain, probably wouldn't do that.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's just like, I don't feel comfortable like falling off the side of a mountain. I don't trust myself to make it up there, but I trust myself to have like someone attached to me to pull a parachute. Yeah.
So you pick your battles.
Yeah.
Which adventures you seek and which ones you hold back on.
Yeah. And who knows, like if I do some, they may lead me to be courageous enough to do others. Well, we'll have to see.
How do you think this attitude affects you in everyday life? Do you think it affects the way you relate to other people, or you were doing sales that affect your relationship to business, to society? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I like hearing that question. I think kind of about creativity. Like I think there's some tie between creativity and adventure, because adventure is like something that's out of the ordinary. Like when you're exploring, you kind of break the routine of your life. And for me, creativity breaks the routine of what's normal. And so for me at work, like when I was at RJ Metrics, I kind of like to like break the routine and try new things. And I guess an example of that is when I first started there, I started in October of 2014. And in April of 2015, Penn State was having this startup week where they invited people who had been successful in other startups come back to speak to the students. And so some of those guys had been speaking even when I was there as a student. So they were like idols of mine, especially in the context of the startup scene. It was like the founders of the company called Weebly, where you can like make your own website. It was like, and they brought back Steve Huffman, who's now the CEO of Reddit. They had this guy, Matt Brezina, who founded this company called Sincerely. Who else did they have? They had the year that I was there, they had Justin Kahn, who is I believe a partner at Y Combinator, who had just sold his company Twitch to Amazon for $900 million. So it was like the power players, and
all Penn State graduates.
The Weebly guys were Penn State grads, and these were just their friends from like the startup culture out in San Francisco, and they're like buds. Like they would just like the same way I went out with my fraternity brothers to Denver, they would like come and hang out at Penn State. And I asked my company, had been there for like 5 months or whatever. I was like, hey, can I just go up to this startup week, like take a week to myself and go up there and try to network with these guys? Cause I think they would be like good clients for us and also could teach us about like a Philly company breaking into the San Francisco demographic. So they did. They let me go up, and I went up to Penn State, and I slept on like the floor of my buddy's place who had graduated but was still working in the area. And I would wake up and I would go to their talks, and I would be that guy like afterwards, like trying to get, it was almost like a reporter, like after an Eagles game or something, you know, like they're trying to get a word in with the athletes. That was me with these guys. And what had eventually happened is like, went and talked to one of the guys after his speech, and I was like, hey, I'm from RJ Metrics, and he was like, yeah, we use Looker, which was a competitor of ours at the time, and kind of like shut me down right away. And I was like, oh, no, it's cool. I just want to like hear about like your thoughts on a Philly company expanding into the San Francisco market. Then I saw him the next day, and I was like, oh, like, how was your night? Like, they usually go out to the bars at night, and I was like, how's your night? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then that Friday night, they had, I guess they had like a get together at a bar in Penn State. It's like the only club on Penn State's campus, really. It's called Indigo. And I had a buddy who had spoken at the startup week and he was my age. We had gone through entrepreneurship class together. He texted me and he was like, dude, bottle service at Indigo, you got to get here. And I was like, all right, sounds good. I'm going to do it. And so I went to Indigo, and the line was like wrapped around the block. And I was like, oh shit, like I have to get in and talk to these guys. Like I have to hang with them and establish a rapport with them. And so I went to the front of the line, and I was like, yeah, I'm here with my startup. Like my co-founder's downstairs. I'm sorry I'm late. I need to get in. And they were like, what company are you with? My buddy's company. And he was like, we don't recognize that name. And he was like, what other company? I was like, oh, Weebly. And he's like, oh, yeah, you can go down. So I went down and like hopped into the bottle service area with these guys. And now that I'm thinking about it, Drew Houston was one of the guys who was also there, who founded Dropbox. And he's like a 30-year-old billionaire or so. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, like spent the night with all of those people. And we ended up like hanging out at the bar till close. And then we all went out to a kid's apartment afterwards and kind of continued the party till like 5 a.m. And so it was just a cool experience. And then I went back this year for Startup Week, and it was like the guys had recognized me. So it was kind of like I was part of the club a little bit. And I brought the co-founder of RJ Metrics to speak this year and kind of like got him a seat at the table with all of these guys. So for me, that was like a proud moment of mine. And I realized that was a very long-winded story to prove a point that I like taking creative approaches to solving problems, I guess, or creating value. And I think in that case, like what I was proud of was establishing a relationship between the co-founder of my company and these guys so that they could potentially benefit from it. And I know since then, like conversations have opened up between their companies and the company that I used to work for. So for me, that was really cool to see.
Is this something you're actively thinking about? Like, do you think, oh, I'm going to try to get in with them? Or is it just an instinct that you go with?
In that situation, I saw like business value in establishing the relationship. nowadays I've kind of moved to like the opposite spectrum of that, and being in sales and having an agenda to every conversation, kind of like I didn't like that feeling, because you're emailing people to try to get them on the phone, and they know why you're trying to get them on the phone is because you want to push your product to them. And even just like trying to connect with other successful entrepreneurs, like their time, like a lot of, I used to call guys who were Penn State graduates and just be like, hey, I'm new to the startup scene. Would love to hear like your path, how you became successful, and like any advice that you have for me. And a lot of people were nice, but some people were like, yeah, I don't understand why you're calling me. Like, what are you looking to get out of this conversation? So it kind of turned me off, and I kind of wanted to focus on building relationships without any type of agenda. And so that's really what I do now. It's I went from meeting with people every day to like try to push something to them and getting rejected by a bunch of people, to a life where people were reaching out to me to have meetings for no reason. It was, for me, it was a cool balance, like a cool dynamic.
How does that feel? How do you feel that before and after?
It feels good. Like, I remember, so I'm a big EDM fan, so I like going to DJ shows, and one of the groups that I saw was back in October. I saw the Chainsmokers perform at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia. And I remember coming back from that concert and being like, man, like, what are like, their life is so cool that they get to their job and they have like all these fans going crazy for them because they're so happy to be there. And I was like, I get to my job and I just have people like responding about how like they hate me and they never want to hear from me again. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, that sucks. And now like I'm kind of in a place where I've switched to like the side of the Chainsmokers, and I'm not at any point like as popular as they are, anything like close to that. But it does feel good to have people reach out to you and like compliment you on what you're doing and ask to be a part of it. So for me, it's like I kind of have somewhat of an audience now, as opposed to like everyone trying to reject me.
Well, and that, I don't know if you want to go this route, but that in and of itself, it's an adventure. You're no longer with RJ Metrics and you decided to take this full time as long as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that that's an adventure?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a pretty stress-free person, but I do think about like, for me, doing this full time means like not having an income and thinking about how to make it work. So it's kind of like employs the mindset of thinking creatively again, where for me, it's like, all right, I have this project that I think is really cool. And a lot of people that I've met with have said it's really cool and it's been like written about and whatnot. But how do I get it to the point where I can make it my life? Like I can fund it and do it full time. So for me, like solving that problem is an adventure in and of itself. I don't know what the answer is. People ask me all the time. They're like, so how are you going to monetize this? And I'm like, I don't know. If you know the answer, let me know so I can do it. But for me, like, yeah, just solving that problem is interesting to me. And I'm kind of excited to see if I can do it. A bit nervous. Like sometimes I'll get doubtful, but for the most part, it's something that like I'm pumped to figure out because I believe I can do it.
It's interesting that you started business and you were doing sales and now you're having this let it be attitude that's just allowing you to enjoy the experience and grow organically.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think about that? About the irony or the contrast?
Not really, because I think like if you would ask my friends, even when I was doing sales and even when I was doing consulting, like if you were to ask them what my attitude was towards life, they'd always probably say like it's a carefree attitude. Like I am just like a very low stress person, that I have the mindset that things will always work out for me. And I think I'm also like the type of person where, what is it like? I'm lucky, but lucky in the way where they say like, preparation meets opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I like to like take risks, but take calculated risks that I think will work out for me. But yeah, I used to have a friend in college, one of my best friends, who like Friday nights, I'd always be like, yo, it's time to go out. Like, let's go out. Where are we going? And he'd be like, nah, I don't think I want to go out tonight. And I'd be like, come on, man, like, let's go out. And he's like, okay, what's the plan? Like, where are we going? How long will we be there? Where are we going after that? And I was like, I have no idea. We'll like find a place to go and then we'll see where the night takes us. And he would not come out with me because he just didn't like the lack of structure to those plans. And to me, that's what made Friday nights exciting. Who knows where the night will go? And that's kind of like what my life is now, is like, who knows where my life will go, but let's kind of sit back and watch.
And that's probably what the attitude that allows you to have all the adventures.
For
bring
sure.
Happiness.
Mm-hmm. Have
you always been that way?
Like carefree?
Carefree, yeah, and easygoing, and well, I don't know if it's the same thing. Carefree, yeah. Yeah,
I think so. I think I adopted that attitude when I was a senior in high school. When I was a senior, like I went to Kennedy Kenrick, which is like suburbs of Philly, and the way that my senior year was set up, so I would take 3 classes at high school, and then I was able to take college credits as well. So I would go to Villanova University every week and take 2 courses there. So Mondays and Wednesdays, like my classes at Kenrick would end early, and I'd go and take afternoon classes at Nova. And I was also at the time like the president of the National Honor Society for our school. I also played soccer, also was the president of the Community Service Corps, and I also had a part-time job. So I had like a lot on my plate, and I was just super, super stressed out. And especially like I didn't really take college seriously. Like I was in class with other college kids at Nova, and like the one exam, it was a microeconomics exam. This is the second exam of the semester. I like didn't study, didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And I ended up getting like a 63 on it and failing. And I was like a straight A student in high school, and it was something that I wanted to maintain. And I remember for the final, I needed to do really, really well. I need to get like a 95 or something. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table and just reading this microeconomics book like all day, every day to try and understand this stuff. And I was so stressed out because of everything else that was going on as well. And then one day I was just like, you know what? Like if I fail this exam and I don't get the A, I was like, it doesn't matter. I was like, as long as I'm not dead, then I can still continue my life and still be a successful person. And since that point, that's kind of like the mindset that I've adopted, is like, if I'm not dead, then I can still become a successful person. And that is applied like when I left Deloitte for RJ Metrics. I was like, if this doesn't work out, I'm still alive. I can still make something of myself. And even getting laid off of RJ Metrics, as if I do this project and I go too far and like maybe it fails, I'm still alive and I can still make something of myself. So I think that mindset came from having too many things going on in my life at one time back in high school, and just being able to take a step back, reflect on it, and kind of like adopt a new attitude from it.
Okay, Rob, now I have the rapid fire section. I want to ask you some very quick questions about different things that make you happy, and I want your gut reaction. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Where is your happy place?
Home, I guess. Let's go with my parents' house.
Who makes you happy?
Family and friends.
Finish the sentence. Happiness means?
Freedom.
Is there a movie or a song that makes you happy?
Song, let's go with Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson.
What is the first happy moment you can remember?
First happy moment I can remember. I'm thinking back to preschool when we used to pull our turtlenecks up over our faces and pretend we were Power Rangers.
Okay, Rob, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you and your project?
Yeah, so the best place is Instagram. My account is Rob's 10K Friends. But I also have a website, robs10kfriends.com. It's kind of like a blog. It has the link to all of the media sources that have covered it, has some of my thoughts on why I started it and how I started it. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter at Robs10kfriends, but Instagram is pretty much the main place for it.
And I'm meeting you next week. But for people listening to this, it would have been 2 months ago. So we're time traveling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share it once I'm on it and put links to everything in the podcast show notes.
Yeah,
Rob,
that sounds awesome.
Thank you very much. It was great chatting with you about what makes you happy.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob, for sharing what makes you happy, and thank you for letting me be a part of your project to meet 10,000 people. You can all go to Instagram and check Rob's 10K Friends to see how many people he's met so far, and if you scroll back, I was number 289. Thanks everyone for listening, and a special thanks to Jason Zappolo for editing this episode, Orly Margulis for help with social media, and Rocio Castañeda for ongoing support. You can get show notes and audio for this episode at thehappypodcast.com/episode 35. And you can learn more about the project and get in touch with us through thehappypodcast.com. We're on social media at The Happy Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can get the most recent episodes at youtube.com/thehappypodcast. Please go to iTunes and subscribe if you want to get weekly updates on your device. And if you want other people to find us, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.